Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the P-Ave Perspective. I'm your host, Mr. O'Neill, and tonight we're going to piggyback off the topic from last week where we discussed when women bring trauma with them into new relationships or marriages. And tonight we're going to discuss the fellas. So the title of tonight's episode is When Trauma Follows Him into the New Relationship or the New Marriage. And the silent struggles of unhealed men. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're watching the live stream or whether you're watching the replay I post on YouTube. I appreciate you for taking time out of your week to spend with me. But as usual, this is the P-Ave Perspective, where we build people, we build marriage, we build families, and we build legacy. But like I said, the last episode was a serious conversation, and we talked about the unresolved trauma in women, trauma that's caused by abuse, from a previous relationship. And today, we have to keep it real and we have to bring balance by talking about the men's side of it too, because trauma is not gender exclusive. Everybody can suffer from trauma. But although men carry wounds too, it shows up different because of our makeup. But we carry them differently. And sometimes, a lot of times, we carry them silently. But like I said, tonight we talking about what happens when a man goes into a new relationship or a new marriage and he hasn't resolved the trauma or the issues that he's faced coming up or in his last relationship. And believe it or not, it happens so much more than we think. And I think that's the primary cause of our relationships failures, especially as Black people, because so many of us have went through childhood trauma as well as trauma, in relationships. And no matter what we do and no matter how we try it, if we don't resolve the trauma, we usually carry it into the next relationship. But like I said, it's different for men because like I said, men experience trauma too. Men go through physical abuse, emotional neglect, absentee fathers, hypercritical mothers, sexual trauma, betrayal, public humiliation, chronic rejection, financial instabilities, and all of that is like I said, from childhood issues. Most of that is from childhood issues. But if we don't watch ourselves, relationships can traumatize us too. Believe it or not, it's not spoken on as often and as bad, but men go through just as much abuse as women do in relationships. And like I said, it's not talked about enough because we're men. So as men, we're taught different than women, and y'all know what I mean. Men are taught to be strong, to man up, not to cry, that crying is a sign of weakness. And we are told to just handle it, just step up or just, don't let it worry you. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, instead of trying to heal our issues, we become good at suppressing them or hiding them. And that's never good, because suppressing trauma or hiding trauma, it don't disappear. It resurfaces in our behavior, or it really comes out in our behavior. And when that man gets in a relationship or when that man gets married, it shows up. It shows up, and usually for the worse. But it shows up in ways like emotional detachment, and just like I said, a man who grew up emotionally neglected may struggle to express his feelings, to understand or validate his wife or girlfriend's emotions, to even engage in vulnerable conversations. It's a struggle. And although he may provide financially, although he may be able to be faithful, although he may handle his responsibilities, emotionally, he usually unavailable. And that's how so many of us has gotten, both men and women. We've gotten to the point where we good at hiding stuff, and we good at, like suppressing it until something triggers us, and then it shows up. So a lot of times, when you meet people, like you said, we these days, when you first meet people, you meeting the representative. So the representative is usually the best possible version of that person. So you really don't get to see a lot of that. And it's not, because we have to understand that these issues show up, and it's not that a man doesn't care, but a lot of times as men, we are taught not to be vulnerable. We are taught that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. And we get to a point where it's not a safe place. It's not safe for us to be vulnerable. It's not, safe for us to truly express ourselves, because it's usually used against us, or used as a sign of weakness, or like they say nowadays, giving off feminine energy, you know what I'm saying? And all the negativity that keeps people suffering in silence. And let's be real, relationships require emotional presence. It requires emotional presence. We have to be there emotionally. We have to be able to deal with our emotions. But another thing is anger and explosive reactions. Some people learn early that anger equals control. You know what I'm saying? They talk loud, or they talk rough, and yell and scream and huff and puff. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of men mistakenly think that, equals control, when it really don't. So when we feel disrespected or challenged, criticized, or we just feel inadequate, a lot of us that don't know how to deal with it, a lot of us with unresolved issues, we respond by yelling, by intimidation, by silent treatment, ignoring our partner, or just total withdrawal. Just total withdrawal. And like I said, like a turtle, we crawl into our shell, and we really just, block out the world, block out our mate, block out what's going on around us, because we really don't know how to deal with the issues that we face. But if you really dig deeper into that anger is usually a cover up or a shield, because we're in fear, we feeling shame, or insecurities. It could be a number of things. But if he never learned how to regulate his emotions or deal with his emotions, then that conflict can become war in a relationship. That conflict can become a straight up war in a relationship, and that relationship will suffer. No matter how you try to look at it, it will suffer. But another thing we deal with is control and dominant issues, meaning a man who grew up powerless may overcorrect. He may micromanage, try to micromanage his woman or demand submission. A lot of people try to do that. The submission thing is big right now. And like I said, it's every man real man should expect submission, but demanding it is not going to get you where. If you have to demand it, then you're in the wrong relationship. But some men will shut down a white voice and try to take her voice away, and like nowadays, she just needs to shut up, or she just, and that's not what it's about. Not what it's about. And some of us even go so far as to confuse leadership with domination or dominating. And like I said, it's all bad. It's all bad. And it's not healthy for a relationship, because we have to understand that real leadership is secure. A man that's truly a leader is securing himself as a man. He's secure in his ability to lead. He's secure in his, ability to stand firm as a man. So you're not trying to force nobody, or you're not trying to, control nobody or demand nobody submit to you. But control also is insecurity in disguise. It's the best way to put it. You know what I'm saying? The person that feels the need to try to over dominate or over control somebody is usually insecure in his own right. But like I said, if he needs to control to feel safe, he not healed. He not healed. And just like I said, controlling, let me explain. Controlling is trying to make somebody do something or trying to tell somebody to do something. These days, I see a lot. I've talked to a few women, and protecting you, telling you, hey, you shouldn't put yourself in this situation, or I don't want you here, or I don't want you here. Like a lot of times it can be misconstrued, but a man is going to protect. A man is going to protect. But if a man is not allowed to protect, and he's being treated like he's trying to control when he's trying to protect, he's not going to overdo it. You know what I'm saying? He's going to pull up. A real man is not going to deal with it. But you can tell, the damaged men, because they overdo it. They get controlling what you wear, what you doing, checking in, don't talk to me a certain kind of way, or don't, it just get too out of hand. But simply put, he's not healed. He's not healed. Another thing would be sexual distortion. Unresolved trauma can affect intimacy too. It could, it can affect how he's intimate, how he's sexual. And some men, we see it. Some men, want to knock off everything because they use sex for validation. Sex validates them. Having sex with multiple women, that validates them. But some men disconnect emotionally during intimacy, and really just check out. Is just doing his due. It's no intimacy in it. But some struggle with addiction patterns. Sexual addiction. Nowadays you got porn addiction. You just got over sexualized dudes. And some people, avoid emotional closeness, but seek physical closeness. You know what I'm saying? Meaning they don't want to, know what I'm saying, commit to a relationship or commit to a person, but they, will go with the sex move in a heartbeat. And that's how they deal with it. But physical connection feels safer than emotional exposure. It's easy to knock something down than it is to, express yourself emotionally to that person. And that's crazy. That's crazy. But like we said, the man being damaged, and even if a lot of times, even if he is able to express himself, or even if he is willing to expose himself emotionally, his wife has to be in the right mindset, or his girlfriend has to be in the right mindset of accepting it. And that's what we were talking about yesterday with the damage. And we got to keep in mind, a lot of times in a lot of these relationships, both people are damaged. Both people are damaged. And just like the same thing we spoke on with the women yesterday and speaking on this with the men today. Two damaged people will destroy each other. Let me just say that. Two damaged people will destroy each other. But another thing is avoidance and work addiction. You know what I'm saying? Some men don't explode. Some men don't, try to control. They don't try to do it. They check out and they'll disappear. They'll disappear. They'll start focusing more on work and working late and working extra hours. And, they'll blame it on like, well, I'm trying to make ends meet or I'm trying to get ahead. But they really check out. They get caught up in business and, handling business, starting a business, running a business. And they put all their focus in that and it starts slacking in the relationship. They put less and less time in the relationship. They get into their hobbies. You know what I'm saying? And get too deep into their hobbies. They start getting addicted to social media and scrolling all the time on social media. They, get to playing the game, checking out and want to play the game all the time and don't want to deal with their mate or their spouse, or basically just, they constantly busy and they don't have time. That's another way they deal with it because, again, productivity, being productive, doing something, anything is safer than being vulnerable to a damaged man. That really anything is more safer than being vulnerable to somebody. But emotional absence, like we say, all of those things create distance between him and his mate. And that's never good. It's never good. But let's be straight direct. Unresolved male trauma can lead to emotional isolation in a marriage, communication breakdown, fear-based leadership, intimacy problems, resentment from his mate, his girlfriend or his wife, and children learning unhealthy emotional patterns. Because as we know, our kids pick up on everything. Our kids learn from us. And that's the worst part about this damage. That's why it's so critical that we talk about this damage on both sides. Because not only do it destroy us as people dealing with it, as individuals, and it destroys the marriage, but it also destroys the family too, because the kids get taught all these unhealthy behaviors. And a lot of times, just like me as a youngster, in dealing with my mom being damaged, I didn't know what was going on. That's the worst thing about a kid, you know what I'm saying? To not know what's going on. And just like I said, I understand now, but as a kid, I just thought my mama fussed all the time. She was always angry. She was always bitter. She was always going out. You know what I'm saying? And overall, it just make people look so negative and so, bad. And because you don't understand what's going on. You know what I'm saying? You really don't understand what's going on. And that's the worst part. But in relationships, worst case scenario is it leads to a divorce or it leads to a breakup. But more often than not, when you pair a damaged man with a damaged woman, it gets to the point where it gets physical. It gets to the point where it gets violent, meaning, abusive, meaning verbal abuse. The way they talk to each other, physical abuse, putting their hands on each other. And more often than not, we have to be real about it. If we look at the headlines, that damage can cause death. Because I've seen people recently, and I know they were damaged just by reading the stories and reading, but these people are actually losing it and harming each other, killing each other. And it's like that's never good. It's never gonna be good. It's never gonna be good. But none of this happened because he don't love his family, even though that's how the family usually feel, especially the damaged people, but even the kids. You know what I'm saying? The kids pick up on this and they get to the point where they feel like that the man don't love his family, but it's because he's never confronted his feelings. He's never, really accepted the fact that he's wounded. See, that again, like I said the other day when talking about women, like we, the stuff that happened to us, we were never taught that it was abusive and that it causes problems. It causes physical problems. It causes mental problems, emotional problems. We were never taught that. We were never taught that. So just like I said then, we were taught, especially men, like get over it, suck it up. You know what I'm saying? And the proverbial pray about it. That's how we were taught to deal with it. But man, look, a wounded man can go out and build a house. A wounded man can go out and fix a car. A wounded man can go out and do the everyday things in life, but he struggles to build emotional safety. He struggles to properly deal with his woman. He struggles to properly be able to deal with his kids because of the internal issues that are going on with him. And let me say this, you know what I'm saying, to my ladies, if you're dating or you're seriously looking, these are the things that you need to look for, really. And I try to talk to my people, especially my women. I have daughters, and I try to talk to them all the time about being wary of who they dealing with and really taking the time to get to know somebody. Like, we are so caught up in the physical now. You know what I'm saying? Even I even hear people with that. I hate to get off topic, but I even hear people with that, with sexually transmitted diseases. He didn't look like he had nothing, or she didn't look like she had nothing. Like, we got to get off the visual. I tell people all the time, you're type because of what it looked like. And how many times have you been wrong? How many times have we been attracted to a type that looked good, that that was our type, and it turned out to be that later on we got to the point where we didn't even really know that person. So we got to get away, from the physical. We have to start getting deeper and really getting to know people. And some of the things that women need to look for when dealing with these dudes is, can he express his emotions beyond anger? Like, everybody can get angry. Everybody, know what I'm saying, can express anger, but can he express different emotions? Can he express love? Can he express, hurt? Can he express, doubt? Can he express, emotions? Can he really just, talk about and discuss his emotions? Can he apologize without, the ego? Can he apologize when he's wrong? Does he know how to regulate himself during conflict? Do he know how to remain calm and talk to you with sense during conflict? Is he self-aware? Is he aware, of what's going on with himself? Is he, on top of not only his appearance, but how he carries himself? The things he says, his actions. Like, has he truly processed the stuff that happened to him in the past? Have he truly processed it? Have he truly, did the work? Because if every serious conversation turns into deflecting, blame shifting, withdrawal, aggression, then he hasn't healed. He hasn't done the work. He hasn't, probably haven't even acknowledged that he has issues, because all of that, while a lot of damaged men may say, oh, that's just being a man, like, that's not true masculinity. That's not true masculinity. That is unresolved trauma. It is what it is. And just like I said, I know a lot of people suffer from it, so a lot of people not trying to hear it, and I can dig it. I can dig it. At one point in time, I wasn't trying to hear it either, but truth is truth. And like they say in AA and some other places, until you're willing to admit you have a problem, you can never hope to resolve it. We got to get to the point where we start recognizing, and that's why I'm talking about it. Because, like I said, we're not taught that these are problems. We just taught that that's life. The stuff that happened to us coming up, people, oh, that's life. Deal with it. Oh, get over it. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that easy. It's not. But you cannot marry potential healing. You marry current capacity, or you get in a relationship with current capacity, meaning you have to take the time to get to know who these people are before you get serious. Let me say this too. I know what I'm saying, and I know this is off topic, but we have to teach our young people to get back to dating. You know what I'm saying? We knew it in my age, when back then when we talked about dating, we talked about dating as us spending time with people, getting to know these people. Nowadays, people know what I'm saying. I hear these youngsters say they dating somebody, but they already having sex with them. You know, that's not dating. That's moving too fast. We done cut out dating and made dating sexual. And I think that has a lot to do with us not being able to truly get to know people before we get serious with these people. Before you get serious, like I learned, before you get serious with a woman or before you get serious with a man, you have to see them in all of their emotional phases. You have to see them when they angry. You have to see them when they hurt. You have to see them, when, they like every emotion. Before you truly know somebody, you have to know somebody, like you find out people the best when they mad at you. Just like we said, when they say stuff, when they get mad and say something, they tell you, you know what I'm saying? Well, when he mad, you that's when he really gonna say what he, you know what I'm saying, what he mean when he mad. And it's true. It's true. You really don't see somebody until you see them in all of their emotional phases and how they act, how they respond, how they communicate. Like you really don't get to know them. And that's why, like you said, a lot of times people are so good at acting. The representative is so good to the point where you get in a relationship and you realize, like, I don't even know him, or I thought he was this way, or I thought he was that way. But like, no, we have to get to the point where we take the time, especially women and men, but you have to get to the point where you take your time to really get to know somebody before you get too involved. Because you have to know somebody's current mental state before you can truly, really before you can truly love them. You have to know who they really are. And a lot of us are falling in love with the representative. I done did it. I've done it. And just like I said, I've, you know what I'm saying, been in relationship with some of the best actresses, and they don't even get paid to do it. But they, in the beginning, they seem so sweet. They seem so, and I know women, you know what I'm saying, are the same way with these men. They so sweet, they attentive, this is the thing. And the next thing you know, he cussing you out and beating you up. And you wondering, like, who is this? Like, where did this come from? Like, a lot of time we moving too fast. A lot of time we moving too fast. But my guys, man, it's time for us to get real. Because we are in last place right now. We are in last place as fathers. We're in last place as boyfriends, husbands. We're in last place as uncles. We in last place because we ain't properly dealt with our issues. We ain't properly dealt with it. Strength is not in suppressing our demons. It's not suppressing what, like, we have to face these demons. And a lot of times, like, we need help. We need help. But leadership is not emotional absence, man. In order to be the leaders that we need to be, we have to be there present emotionally. We have to be there present mentally. Providing financially is not the same as being there emotionally. You can pay all the bills. You can, like, beat up everybody that, but if you're not there emotionally, you losing. Your relationship suffering. Your family is suffering. But if your childhood still triggers you, if stuff from your childhood triggers you, and this is one thing I know, just like I you know what I'm saying, was telling somebody. Like, this is one thing in particular. When I say we are taught, like I was just explaining this to a woman. Like, I was lucky enough for men to teach me that you don't hit women. But like I said, I have friends who were never taught that. But we have big homies and stuff like that to be like, oh, you don't let no woman talk to you like that. You gotta put her in her place. You know, you gotta smack her, or you gotta, know what I'm saying, handle her, and this and that. There, I even heard women say, he couldn't handle me, and it like, no, like that's not masculine. That is not being a man. That is not being a man. And anybody who feels like that, you got a problem. You got a problem. But if your childhood and stuff that happened in your childhood still triggers you, you have a problem. If people criticizing you or people calling you, you know what I'm saying, on the stuff that you do wrong, if that feels like an attack, then you got issues. You got unresolved trauma that need to be addressed. If being vulnerable, or expressing yourself to your mate or expressing yourself, you know what I'm saying, to your significant other, if that feels like a weakness, then you have unresolved issues. You have unresolved trauma that you need to deal with. And if anger is your primary emotion, if you always angry and people making you angry and you have issues. You have unresolved issues because I'm gonna tell you, keep it real. As a man, just like I tell women, you made me mad. Nobody can make you mad. If somebody can make you mad, then that person has too much control over you. You're giving somebody else too much control over you. You know what I'm saying? And let's just be real. Let's just be real. But again, like I told the women last week, you damaged, but you're not broken. You damaged, but you also. We can't just, you know what I'm saying, keep going with the hurt people narrative. No, that's bogus, because a sane person that's been hurt, that know how it feel to be hurt, he doesn't want to hurt nobody like that. Only hurt people with unresolved issues feel like hurt people hurt people. No, because balanced people who have dealt with their issues, know how certain things made them feel when it happened to them, so they would never want to make somebody else feel that way. That's about being a man. But healing is not soft. Healing is not, especially for us, it's discipline. And that's one of the hardest things for a lot of us, is to be disciplined. But we have to get to the point where we are comfortable dealing with it. And if we can't deal with it, get help. Go talk to somebody. Talk to a counselor. Get therapy. Do whatever you have to do, because that is hindering you from being a man. That is usually hindering your relationship. That's probably why so many of us have so many failed relationships, because we haven't dealt with it, and will continue. And then the crazy part about it is, while we continue to destroy our relationships, we'll continue to blame it on everybody else. Like, how many relationships do we have to lose to, and how do we have to blame somebody else till we get to the point where we realize, like the old folks used to say, it can't be everybody else all the time. It can't be everybody else all the time. But we have to learn emotional language. We have to practice regulating our nervous system and our emotions. We have to, really unlearn or reteach ourselves that we don't have to suffer in silence. You know what I'm saying? Manhood is not being about being silent and just dealing with it. Don't let nobody tell you that. Don't let nobody tell you that, because too many of us are going to a cell or going to hell thinking that we have to suffer in silence. We don't. We don't. But your wife or your girlfriend should not have to, parent you emotionally. That's not what it's about. You know what I'm saying? You help regulate kids. You don't do that with adults. Your children should not inherit your unprocessed pain. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And if you do, you're destroying your relationship. You're destroying your wife or your girlfriend emotionally, mentally, and you destroying your kids, like I said earlier. You can't be constructive. You can't be building nothing if you haven't built yourself first. But look, for my people that are already in relationships that's dealing with this, for my people that's already married and dealing with this, like, healing is possible. You can heal. But if you're going to heal, you're going to have to get real. Real healing requires, first of all, for you to be totally honest with yourself. And it's so hard to do that for a lot of people nowadays. It's crazy, but I was talking about this the other day. We as Black people have become so comfortable lying to ourselves, and I ain't never understood that. I swear I could never do that. I have a conscience, and I could never just lie to but we've gotten to the point where we lie so much as people, we believe our own lies. But we have to get to the point where we get real with ourselves. We have to get to the point where, married couples, if you want to resolve it, get counseling, get some professional support. We have to learn humility. We have to learn, to humble ourselves, both of us. We have to learn to step away from situations when we see them getting out of hand. We have to learn to back up, from situations when we start feeling ourselves getting angry. We have to start regulating. We have to really start regulating ourselves and not being no punk, but being in control. Being in control. Being in control, you know what I'm saying? And being able to deal with somebody talking to you crazy and being able to walk away, or being able to, deal with somebody calling you out of your name and keeping your composure to walk away. Like, I look at so many of us nowadays, out in public fighting when people say something to us. Like, freedom of speech is a right. But we so angry, and we so, dealing with these unresolved issues that to the point where people can't say nothing to us. Like, we ready to fight. We ready to, put it all on the line. And like that is destroying us. We have to regulate ourselves better. We have to be more consistent. But fellas, let your wife, let your, person see your humanity without losing your leadership. We gotta get better. We gotta get better. And until we get better as individuals, we'll never hope to rebuild the families. We'll never hope to rebuild our neighborhoods. We can never hope to rebuild our communities. It's just that serious. It's just that serious. Nothing I talk about on this show, whether it's families, whether it's communities, whether it's neighborhoods, whether it's businesses, nothing happens unless we are the best versions of ourselves. And right now, we not. Fellas, we not. We not. Ladies, we have to learn to encourage without shame and vulnerability. You have to, learn to allow your man, just, and a man expressing himself. Like I said, it's not feminine. It's not feminine energy. You know what I'm saying? It's being a man. It's part of being human. And just like I said, all of this so much, like, we don't understand. We don't understand. Like, the damaged women don't understand, the energy that they put out, just like the damaged men don't. And it continues to damage. It continues to damage. But it's like so many of us as men in dealing with women, we have, so many of us haven't saw real, balanced women. Women without emotion. Like, I tell people all the time, I was raised around every woman almost in my life was damaged. Every woman almost in my life have been abused, have been, from, like we said, from previous relationships, from childhood. Like, most of the women I've met in my life have unresolved issues. So, like, I got to a point where that's all I attracted. That's all I know how to deal with, because I'm damaged. And damage attract damage. And it's like, women, you have to create emotional safety on both sides. You have to give him that safety to be a man, to express himself, to open up to you. Like, who else are we as men to open up to if not our mates? Let's keep it real. We don't do the homeboy thing. Real men, like that, they say that now. Real men vent to their homeboys, and women wonder why. Oh, his homeboy. It's because we so damaged, and y'all so damaged to the point where we can't get what we need from y'all. And y'all are the people who are supposed to give it to us. We are supposed to be able, that's where we're supposed to be most vulnerable in our bedroom, in our homes. But dealing with damaged women, you can't, because it'll be used against you. You know what I'm saying? It'll be, used against you as a sign of weakness. And people, you know what I'm saying, look at you as weak for doing it. And that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how it's supposed to be. But trauma cannot survive in consistent safety. We have to get women. Y'all have to make it safe. But safety must be built intentionally. Y'all have to make it safe for us. If it's not a safe place, then we won't stay there, especially as real men. But if it's not a safe place, you'll see, because it's not gonna do nothing but trigger. Same way with the women. If they man not providing a safe, you know what I'm saying, place for them to be themselves, like it's gonna lead to conflict. It's gonna lead to drama. It's gonna lead to the arguing. It's gonna lead to everything we done talked about over this length of this show. It's what it's gonna lead to. But fellas, we got to get to the point where we do better. We got to get to the point where we want it, and it starts with identifying. It starts with identifying. But I'm about to wrap up, but I want to leave y'all with something as usual. A healed man is dangerous in the best way. He is steady. He is secure. He does not need dominance to feel strong. He does not need silence to feel masculine. He does not run from emotional depth. He leads with clarity and not control. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So it's time out, for all the extra activity. It's time to start really striving to be real men, fellas. It starts right here with striving to be real men. And it starts with getting the help we need to resolve the issues that we face. But unresolved trauma creates reactive men. Healed trauma creates wise leaders. And on the P-Ave Perspective, we are not raising reactive men. We are building wise men. Like I said, this is Mr. O'Neal. This is the P-Ave Perspective. I thank y'all all for tuning in, giving me this time this week. I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all week. And I hope that we really take some time to think about the unresolved issues that we face, and how, if we don't deal with these issues, we'll continue carrying these issues into every relationship that we enter. And if we enter with issues, it's only going to be issues. The issues are only going to get worse. And like I said, I'm for strong individuals. I'm for strong families, strong neighborhoods, and strong communities. And we're going to keep on pushing until we get it right. We're going to keep on pushing until we get it right. But like I said, I appreciate y'all tuning in this week. And hopefully, God willing, I'll see you all next Thursday at the same time. But like I said, I'm Mr. O'Neal. This is the P-Ave Perspective. And I wish y'all all a great night. Thank y'all for tuning in with me.